What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Mike Force Podcast. It is, of course, your host, Mike G. Appreciate you guys tuning in, whether you're listening to me on iTunes or you're tuning in on YouTube, visual or audio, whatever you're into. I just appreciate you being a subscriber and listening to all the good stuff that we put out. Fieldcraft Survival was another podcast you should be listening to, which is my company's podcast. And I have a line out of great and amazing guests I'll be personally hosting as well. So always subscribe. I mean, these podcasts for me are good for you once a week on an evening or morning commute. But I just want to say I appreciate you guys, because without you and your support, I wouldn't be able to do this for a living, and I'm proud to do so. I kind of want to get to headlines and then get into the podcast, which is on Homestead. But let's first look at the headlines. I like breaking this down occasionally in current events because a lot of you ask me for my opinion on certain things, and it's good to talk about these current event issues that affect our daily lives. Some of it's just fluff. No one gives a crap, but a lot of it is pertinent. Did have a social media post that I posted on recently and talked about, it was a description of a wrong way driver who was driving in the United Kingdom, in the UK. It was probably Tom Williams, who was driving the wrong way in a tunnel, almost hitting cars head on. He actually hit a car, but everybody walked away from the accident, and the guy got 4 years. And I want to give you my opinion on that because that was posted by ABC News. And I like taking the news sources that I read from biased news sources like CNN, because I like to see the spin in things. I like to be well informed of what I believe the enemy of our country is, including radical ideology, both on the left and the right. You see, when you're a moderate, meaning you just use logic and common sense to kind of navigate your everyday life, then extremists are the biggest threat to democracy, to safety and security. And when I see the media on the fringe trying to affect and change culture, which they've been very good at recently in the last 5 years since technology, and especially in social, has completely immersed and saturated our lives, I pay attention to that. So in this news video segment, they talk about this UK driver, and they are sympathetic to the fact that the driver was convicted of 4 years in prison, but didn't hurt anybody. I mean, everybody walked away without injury. Now, when you take that and amplify all of the social issues, the criminal issues, the spike in crime statistics across the United States in every major metropolitan area, herein lies the issue with when ideology and politics affect people. And you have radical district attorneys, radical mayors and governors, radical chiefs of police and sheriffs, and these leftist, extremist counties that are not enforcing law. And so you can felony assault a police officer, as I just found out in a podcast with a California police officer that I interviewed for the Fieldcraft Survival podcast. You can assault a police officer, felony assault, and get released the same day. But if you are a police officer and you conduct the same attack, you could go to prison for 3 years. A lot of these places that are dealing with systemic, epidemic crime on a scale that we've never seen are because of the policies that are in place where people know they can get away with it. But what's the recourse if you go into a shopping center or a shopping mall or a store and rob everything from them? There is none. And then if you're a law-abiding citizen and you try to defend yourself or defend your business, because that is not just a business, that is your way of life, well, then you're the bad guy and you're prosecuted heavily. Let's not even get into race and the imbalance, especially when it comes to crime statistics and how these laws are enforced. But I wanted to start with that because it is radical media that is changing the course of our lives and the fabric of our society. is being ripped and tethered apart because of it. So the headlines in CNN say Supreme Court draft opinion would overturn Roe versus Wade. Chief Justice Roberts orders an investigation into the leak. Biden weighs in. Republicans and Democrats mobilize. What you need to know. Here's some interesting things that relate to Roe versus Wade that have nothing to do with the specific instances of the case. But one of the chief justices that made the final decision, Blackburn, I actually worked for the funeral home, Joseph Galler's funeral home in Washington, D.C., that interred him when he passed away. And I was in the funeral home. I was downstairs with him, and we had to move him and transport him to the Capitol where they had a vigil. And I was part of that whole experience. And it was really impactful, especially being, it was a part-time job, and I was an active duty Army guy, tomb guard, and I worked a firefighter schedule, but I saw the impact of behind the scenes of someone like a Chief Justice who's given full honors and memorialized in such a significant way. Now, the question that I got this morning, which is a lot because of this hitting the news, is what is my feeling on abortion? And what are my feelings on Roe versus Wade? So there's a debate that I'm not in a position to speak upon from a woman's perspective, obviously because I'm a damn man, that is very personal that I get, which is why are men, for example, creating laws that affect women's bodies? I get that argument. Now, do I agree with it? Not necessarily. One of the systemic issues that exist in our society today is the complete disregard, and Marxist ideology amplifies this, the BLM movement amplifies this, the destruction of the family unit. Because in Marxist ideology, a family unit is racist. It's not significant in the future of our society. When I think that's the biggest lie I've ever heard in my life. The significance of the importance of a family unit can be seen in the crime statistics of young African-American males that at the largest scale are being affected by broken homes and birth outside of a family unit, outside of wedlock. You could describe it as that, but that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that these young men are growing up without fathers. There are no men or role models in these men's lives. When I see especially young black men committing acts of violence and crime, I wonder where their fathers are at. And likely they're not in the picture. So when it relates to abortions, one of the issues that we have as a society is we neglect the importance and significance of a family unit. In fact, we promote against it. And I'm adamantly against that because I believe the family unit, whether it's my circumstance where I have a wonderful woman in my life, but I also have a wonderful ex-spouse who's co-parenting with me. Now, as with an ex-spouse that is coherent and present in the raising of children, even outside of a separation, that is massively important because there's balances of time between parenting, knowing that they're going to grow up in loving households. All of that means a lot in growing a developed, productive member of our society who's going to have empathy, who's going to have values, that's going to have character. We don't pay attention to this. And so when it comes to abortion, we think abortion is the easy way to navigate our reckless behavior. Because if you have sex and you procreate, well, there is no thought to having to live with that responsibility. because you could be reckless in your life. You could sleep around. You could do whatever you want. You could have no values whatsoever. And then you could just abort a baby. In some states, you could abort all the way into the point of giving birth to that child, which is insanity to me. So the question would be, is Mike pro-life? 100% I'm pro-life. With that being said, not everything's conclusive. Not everything is black and white. There are circumstances of rape where if a woman is sexually assaulted and raped against her will, and she is impregnated by that violent attacker, well then, yes, that would be a case where Mike Glover's view on abortion would be different. But I also believe that there is a window of time that is appropriate for the development of a child where you are taking a life that could thrive. Now, deep down in me, because I am a man of God, I believe in God, and I believe in a bigger picture than the life of artificial and material things that we live in this life. That life, when is conceived in a woman, is life. I do believe that. But I also believe there are particular circumstances where we have to look at the woman's rights and the woman's situation for her right to make a choice. Now, that for me, because I don't have all the science here, is a little convoluted. Because there is a point in having twins, myself, a boy and a girl, where that life is capable and able to thrive outside the womb. And that's typically, I believe, in the third trimester. And I'm speaking out of my ass here, guys. I'm not an expert at birthing of children, except for the birthing that I assisted in with my ex-spouse. Leave your comments below if you're an expert at this. If you're not an expert, just shut the hell up, because you don't know what you're talking about, likely. But there's a lot of gray area there of determining whether or not a woman or a child is a child, or a life is a life. And I get both sides of the arguments. What I don't get is this idea that we're going to terminate a child in the third trimester when they're capable of living outside of the mother's womb. And why would we trust that just haphazardly, that a woman's decision after recklessly having a child potentially, and then deciding in the third trimester up into the point of which she gives birth, that she is capable in the right state of mind to make the decision to take a life, right? And because we've afforded her the opportunities in choice to make that decision, it's more profound than that. Because a lot of these women who are getting impregnated by men who just roll the hell out, which is why a lot of these women potentially want, and this is not coming from me, this is speaking to experts, including Mike Hernandez, who's a behavioral health specialist who deals with orphans for a living, who works for me full time, who's one of my best friends. So when you have a woman who is impregnated, decides to potentially raise that child, and then in the third trimester decides not, and they want to abort that child, that to me is murder. Because they shouldn't, one, have the choice to terminate a child when it's capable of living outside the womb, because that's literally killing a person. And I don't agree with that. So it is a complex situation. But just to say that, like when I see women who protest this and they're super toxic, saying it's my choice, it's my choice. No, lady, it's not your choice anymore. Because now you're aborting a child where the man that had sex with you, as long as it was consensual, has just as much as they say, should have just as much as they say in the abortion of that child, because it's not just your body anymore. You're a vessel for that life. So these women who protest and go, my choice, not anymore. When you decided to have consensual sex, knowing that you could potentially have a child up into a certain point, that's no longer your choice. And that child should have rights that are protected in the federal government. Now, I've heard the argument, like, should the federal government get involved? Yeah. Do you want to have rogue abortion clinics popping up next to McDonald's down the road that are just aborting babies and throwing them into 55-gallon drums? No. I mean, the horror stories exist out there. I'm being facetious because that's not literally how it potentially happens, but I've seen the videos, I've seen the reports of how some of this stuff happens, and it's disgusting. We're not a third world country. Our values shouldn't dictate those kind of actions. Our laws should not protect women or people in general from being reckless, and that's what this is. It's a very complex situation, but that's my opinion on it. If you want to ask me more pointed questions, don't attack me. Don't call me whatever you're calling me, because I'm willing to have the conversation. But you have to be willing to ask me the question. Some other headlines. It looks like Susan Collins bet wrong on Brett Kavanaugh and Roe versus Wade. That they're pushing an agenda. I don't know what side they want to be on, because it just depends in Bizarro world where you're at. Lastly, I'll put it out here. I put a tweet talking about my child, my son in particular, putting on his sister's shoe, and me telling the child, my son, hey, that's a little girl's boot, or that's a little girl's shoe, and put on your boots, because these are for little boys. And I got a few comments like where people were like, if that's your view of how boys think they're boys and girls think they're girls, then you're completely wrong. No, actually, you're completely wrong if you think the context for the complexities of my understanding of boys being boys and girls being girls is based on their shoes. Because what I'm saying is, which is why I hate short form communication. I think it's funny that people go out of their way to give me their strong voiced opinion in a few words, because that's not how this works. There's always complexity. There's always a deeper narrative. Here's my narrative. If you allow your child to make their choices because they're children, a child will want to be a dinosaur. And then we say, oh, yeah, you can grow up and be the biggest, best dinosaur that you want. You can get a job and work at, you can work for the oil and gas industry, digging up fossil fuels. I don't know. But if we actually allow ourselves to not feel guilty about raising our children to be children, but to be children of their gender, which is somehow like now an argument, then we should feel guilty about that. Well, I'm telling you, in the Glover's residence, I don't feel guilty about that, because number one, I gives a shit about your opinion on how I should raise my children, right? So in my household, if my little boy is acting or doing things that are going to make him be or misunderstand that he is a little girl, then I want to clarify that for him, because he's a child, right? So I don't say to my son, hey, put on these ballerina shoes, put on this little tutu, because you could be whatever you want to be. No, that's aligned with a profession. Son, if you want to be a female, if you want to be a woman, that's not an option, because you're not a woman, you're a little boy. But if you want to be a dancer, sure, you could be a dancer, because there are male dancers, right? So if I'm facilitating their imagination as children, they could be whatever they want to be. But I want my son to know he is a little boy, that he needs to protect his little sister, that he needs to do the harder labor because he's stronger. I need him to understand that he is not a girl, like my girl needs to understand she's not a boy. My girl hates baby dolls, right? My little girl hates baby dolls, but she loves dinosaurs. So is that gender affiliated? No. But if my little girl puts on boots, which she can put on boots because little girls put on boots, because little girls have to be in the field too doing things. But do little boys need to wear Cinderella shoes, little high heel shoes? The answer is no. Because I don't want my son to grow up thinking, oh, I grew up wearing dresses and wearing shoes, so that's okay, right? No, it's not okay, because that's not who you are. You're a man. You're a little boy growing up to be a man. And it would be irresponsible for me as a parent to raise them otherwise. So little girl, you want to mess with dinosaurs? Guess what? You could be whatever you want to be. You want to be an archaeologist? You could be an archaeologist. You want to dig up dinosaur bones and travel the world? You could be that, because women are that. The profession doesn't identify with genders. They identify with expertise. But if my little girl was like, Daddy, I want to be a little boy. Well, baby, you could be a little girl and do little boy stuff, but you're still a little girl at the end of the day. The idea that I'm actually talking about this with you on a podcast is disturbing to me. The problem that we've run into is because we feel like we can't definitively be something. We can't have integrity. We can't be married. We can't have a family unit. We can't be religious. We can't love our families. We can't protect our families. We can't carry a firearm in the protection of our families. We can't go to church. We can't not like mask. Right? We can't like we cannot not like the government telling us what to do. Then somehow we're extremist. Well, I'm not extremist. I'm actually very moderate. I just want the government and people to stay the hell out of my business. And so should you. So should you. Enough on that, but let's move on. I want to talk about a few things, and one of the things is our new Black Rifle coffee called Fieldcraft Survival Endurance. I designed this bag with a wonderful artist that works for Black Rifle Coffee, Chris Hunt, one of my favorite people on the planet. But I made this coffee with Black Rifle Coffee before the Endurance was discovered. If you don't know what the Endurance is, Ernest Shackleton in the early 1900s, right before the war broke out in World War I, before the United Kingdom's involvement, which this was a UK-based trip, a British-based trip, they wanted to make a transcontinental movement across Antarctica, which have never been done before, right? And I think I said, yeah, okay. And when they wanted to do that, they wanted to beat records. Now they sought out to do this, and their ship, because of the ice, because of the current weather conditions during that year, ran up on ice and dislodged them where they would have to survive over the course of a couple years. It's one of the most epic stories of survival. In fact, just as for you, if you're listening to me and watching me on YouTube, I have right here before me one of the first editions of Shackleton's book called South. And it is one of my favorite books ever written. But what's historically beautiful about this particular book is the fact that this book in particular has a letter that came with it that you can see it right here, that is signed by Ernest Shackleton, which is epic. I mean, I'm getting chills. I just gave myself chills. Isn't that weird? Signed by Ernest Shackleton, which is amazing. And I talk about the significance of this as it relates to resilience and survival. But one of the quotes that Ernest Shackleton said, he said, optimism is true moral courage, which is a mindset, right? Being optimistic about life is a choice, but it's also a choice and a courageous choice, and identifying with your own morality and which side of the fence you choose to think on that affects the rest of your life. You know, one of the family quotes of Ernest Shackleton was, "Through endurance, we conquer." And the reason that's so significant, especially in today's society, is we are so short-lived, so short-sighted in our decisions and our commitments in life. Personally, I've given up on people, and I shouldn't have. And I've seen people give up on me. But I've also given people a lot of chances. Relationship-wise, people have worked for me, and I've been very empathetic and sympathetic to people's personal and professional situations. But I think as a society, we haven't done that well. So when we say we're committed to somebody, how well are you committed? My new commitments in life are, my new ideology in life is to be optimistic, which will make you more resilient. But also, I want to be further committed, right? I want to try. I want to be conscious. I want to be now and present, right? So many people are not now and present. Their future and not present, right? They want to think about everything that they're going to do, and they don't focus on what's in front of them, the spouse, the children, etc. Anyways, that's my way of saying, hey, go buy this coffee. It's on our website at fieldcraftsurvival.com, but it's pretty cool to memorialize this history. We have a podcast on the Fieldcraft Survival podcast called Stories of Survival that you could see. I'm a big history buff, and it's epic stuff. And I wanted to share that with you. And that's one of the ways that I could share it with you. On the topic of books, before I get to the podcast, I mean, we're on the podcast, but before I get to talking about Homestead, let me read you an excerpt from Tim Kennedy's book. Now, this book's not out yet. It comes on sale June 7th of 2022. Just of note, and I don't want to talk about this too long because it's not really relevant. A lot of people have attacked Tim Kennedy about his position on 2A. I've personally on a podcast talked about that question, and he's not 2A. He misspoke. He said some things he didn't mean to say. He's come out and said that repeatedly, but I see the comments that are disgusting talking about Tim Kennedy, who's a true patriot. I've known Tim for over almost 20 years. And Tim, since I've served with him in special operations, we were both snipers on different commanders in extremist forces. I was actually his sergeant major, his boss, as the J3 sergeant major of the ops sergeant major for his unit. And I went to sniper school with him. And he's a patriot. He's a family man. He's a great human being who's done more for this country than all of the shit talkers combined. And I hate to see that because they throw my name in the hat, which I don't care. I mean, I'm not anti-gun. I've never been anti-2A. My favorite thing is to go to these guys' profiles and their literal persona is about the Second Amendment. Like, just get out of my face, man. Not that it's not. I want people to promote the Second Amendment, but if that's your bumper sticker on your truck, your shirt and hat on your body, that's in your bio, and that's all you live, get a life. You probably don't have a good job. Get a job and focus on your family instead of virtue signaling to the world about what you represent. Because if you truly want to protect the Second Amendment, you could do that in uniform and protect and serve your country, which Tim Kennedy has obviously done. Let me read you this excerpt, which is kind of cool because I'm in this excerpt, but I also want to give you a little context behind the actual story, which I think is really cool because we're talking about my specific working with Tim Kennedy in this. So this is an excerpt from his book, Scars and Stripes by Tim Kennedy and Nick Palmisciano. I always screw up Nick's name. I'm sorry, Nick. I'll just call you Nick. All right, here we go. And I quote, "I love shooting. So when I get the chance to go to the Special Operations Target Interdiction Course, otherwise known as SOTIC or AKA SF Sniper School, I jump at it. I have to admit, I didn't expect it to go this way. In SOTIC, you pass or fail as a team, not as an individual. I have the highest individual score in the class. My partner has the lowest. He's a great guy, but he is absolutely not a natural sniper. Doesn't have the right temperament to train himself to be one and is dealing with some post-traumatic stress. In 2008, these things are not talked about the way they will be later. So he likely is in a very bad place, worrying about people's thinking he is weak, with the additional stress of schoolhouse stacked on top of that. The field shoot is our last multi-pass event. If we finish this, we're golden. We need to stalk up to a target without being seen, take a shot, and hit the target using no more than 3 rounds. I am the shooter. He is the spotter. We walk, crawl, and drag ourselves into position, inch by inch, quietly over a matter of hours. I have an easy shot ahead of me. I could virtually hit this blindfolded. I call the shot, meaning I tell him we are taking it here, and ask for a read, meaning he estimates the range and reports the wind and direction. He takes a moment and gives me the read. I look at him. It's a terrible fucking read. I know it's completely wrong. The range is long, and he has called the wind in exactly the wrong direction. If I fail to hit the target, we fail. I cannot take the shot with that read, I whisper. Hey, brother, can you check that again? I think the wind is in the wrong direction. His eyes fidget. He looks at the target and then looks at me and says, you're right, I'm freaking the fuck out. Then he stands up and walks away, announcing to the cadre that he is quitting sniper school, while simultaneously giving up our position. What in the actual fuck just happened? The cadre are about as shocked as I am, but are greatly amused, whereas I am not. Looks like you fail. Your partner quit, Kennedy. Hell no, Sergeant, I reply. I'm not quitting. I still have to take a shot. They mess with me for a while, taunting me for running my partner out of the course. I'm the last guy left to shoot. When I'm done, everyone gets to go home for the day. Everyone else has passed and are all sitting in the bleachers watching and waiting. Finally, given that we are in an impasse, one of our cadre walks off to the bleachers. Does anyone want a spot for Kennedy? There are 2 caveats. I'm only giving you 1 round to hit the target, and I get to pick it. Given those conditions, who wants Kennedy's pass or fail to be on your shoulders? I scan the bleachers. I know my chances are not good. Who would want to do that? But I don't wait long. A burly Asian on the far left side stands up immediately. Picture the Batman costume, but Asian. And that's basically Mike Glover. This dude isn't worried at all. He walks over like he's about to choose a salad dressing at a salad bar, which would be blue cheese, not making the decision that will affect whether I pass or fail. What if I put your graduation on the line, Glover? The sergeant asks. I'm making the same decision, Sergeant. Glover responds. I like this guy. Well, I guess it's lucky we aren't doing that to you, Glover. The cadre took out one M118 LR round and place it on a little dish, proffering it us like they're serving dessert in a fine dining establishment. If you get a first round hit on your target, Kennedy, you graduate. If you don't, you fail sniper school. They choose the 788 meter target. It is the furthest one from the out position, from our position. Mike looks at it very quickly and gives me the adjustment. His confidence and speed scare me a little. I'm not used to it after spending the whole course with my partner. Are you sure? I ask. Calmly, Mike repeats the exact wind call he just said. I make his adjustments. I squeeze the trigger, and I see impact, and then a second later hear the ping. Dead on. Balls. Motherfucking accurate. Mike claps me on the back and says, good job. I pick up my gear and smile at the cadre and strongly resist the urge to break in an MC Hammer style break dancing session while singing Too Legit to Quit. That's awesome to read that. Because it's true. It actually happened. When I was in sniper school, me and my sniper partner were from the Commander's Ignis Extremis Force. His name was Joe. And me and Joe had good rapport, good relationship, and we were going to war right after this trip. So in 2008, I had already had 3 significant combat rotations. I was a senior member of Special Operations. I was an E7, a sergeant first class, and I was ready to evolve into a sniper and focus on reconnaissance. So we were preparing for our 08 rotation to Iraq because we just did our 07 rotation. And I wanted to get sniper qualified, so I went to sniper school. Remember, the premier sniper school in the military, unfortunately, isn't Fort Benning, Georgia. It's not the regular Army sniper school. It is SOTIC, Special Operations Target Interdiction Course, otherwise known as Special Forces Sniper Course, which Rangers, SF, CAG all go to become sniper qualified. Very significant school that has a profound impact on detachments and teams because they could cross-teach certain indigenous forces, but also as a unilateral sniper supporting American forces, it's important to go to that course. Now, what I remember about that day is the cadre didn't like Tim Kennedy. They weren't big fans of Tim. And I saw how they treated him, and I didn't like it. Not to say I had pull, but some of my own instructors were actually instructors that came from my old unit. I didn't have it made at all, but I had the respect to some of the men because some of the men like Ricky Harris, like Rick Kuza, some of those, Kevin Owens, he wasn't my instructor, but he wasn't there at the time, but he later came after I graduated. But some of these guys were teammates of mine. So it did happen. He failed the field shoot with his partner, and they asked for a volunteer, and I volunteered to be Tim's spotter. I had confidence in my ability. I was already designated as a sniper on a Commanders and Extremist Force team, had done the train up. Kevin Owens actually helped me train up, and my team helped me train up, and I was confident in my capabilities. So for me, calling a shot for Tim wasn't an issue. I do remember that the instructor, Eric, came back. He was the NCOIC, and they wanted to fail Tim. And the decision was made to not fail him to give him one shot. And it was like a movie. I mean, I remember they pulled one round out of the box. Eric pulled one round out of the box and said, here's your one round. He hits it, he passes, he misses it, he fails. And I said, whatever. I mean, people who know me know I operate well under pressure. In fact, I think I operate better under pressure. So we get out, we get him on the gun, and the shooting instructor, which I won't name his name because we don't have a very good relationship, and I would be criticizing him here, and he still teaches at the schoolhouse. He chose a target, and he chose the furthest target. Tim is right, which is the near 800-meter target, which for 308 is very difficult to do, especially with wind, and there was wind that day. I believe my mill hold was over 1 mil, which meant the wind was 8 to 12 miles an hour. I can't remember exactly, but it was a strong wind call. And as we're on the range, he gets set up, and we're under a time constraint. But the target he chose, we have to adapt because it's an unknown distance target. We have to adapt the mill. So we mill it, we guesstimate the range. So the room for error at 788 or 800 meters is 0. Because if you deviate slightly off the actual range and then you have a whack wind call, there's no chance in hell that you're going to hit the target. So I was confident in my capabilities. I remember calling the shot. And I remember Tim actually hesitating, like he said, and then me repeating it again. Because the repeating of the wind call is the verbal communication. You don't say, Tim, listen to what I'm telling you. You just repeat it calmly because the wind changes second by second. So I looked at it again and I called it again, and then he broke the shot. That target had not been hit all day. So I saw the trace of the round going up. I saw the thermal shake in the spotting scope, and I saw the profound impact of that round hitting dead center of that target. And I remember getting up and tapping him on his shoulder and saying, good job, and I just walked away. Here's what I also remember. Ever since that moment, which was nearly halfway through sniper school, some of the cadre were targeting me and did not want me to pass. I was told by instructors that was the case, that especially instructors that knew me, and they said that was the case. That was completely not professional. I don't blame the schoolhouse. I blame the individual cadre that were there, but they couldn't get rid of me. They wanted me. In fact, on the actual last day, I mean, you could track my records if you're a SOTIC instructor. On the last day, they made me take 2 shots when I was only required to take 1. And it was under stress, no sleep, from an urban hide. And they set me up for the shot. And I said to my instructor, I already took a shot. They said the instructors the cadre want you to take another shot. Well, if you failed that shot on the last day in the last moment, then you would fail sniper school. They wanted me to fail. And I said, whatever, dude, give me the shot. I took the shot with confidence, broke the shot, dropped the target. And I was so disgusted by some of the cadre there that for graduation, I didn't show up. I had my sergeant major reach out to the NCOIC, the guy in charge, and said, Mike and Joe are not showing up to graduation. And our excuse, we had to go administratively check out or process because we were leaving the following Monday for war. I said, I don't want to go to graduation. And what's even more ironic is me and my partner, Joe, were top shooting team. So I think a CAG guy who's a buddy of mine was top shooter, but me and my partner were top shooting team. And we weren't even there to receive the award because I didn't give a shit. I wanted to accomplish the goal, which was getting sniper qualified, and I wanted to go to war. I didn't have time for the drama. In life, you're going to deal with things like this constantly. It's the nature of people, by the way. I mean, I deal with it every day with former employees, whatever. Like it's just people, right? The best way to understand how to navigate this is understand people. And people are inherently flawed. I am inherently flawed just like you. I didn't have time for it because my focus was war. All right, guys. Last but not least, and going into the podcast, at least the content or context of the podcast on Homestead, I'm talking about Clint Emerson's book, The Rugged Life. I don't know if this book is out, but I've given it a breeze over, especially as I talk about homestead stuff, and it's the perfect book to line you out for your homestead journey. Clint is a personal friend of mine. He does not pay me for these book plugs. But I personally promote him because his books are very good for educating you on all things farmstead. It's called The Rugged Life. He talks about smoking meat. He talks about how to make coconut oil, how to raise chickens, all the stuff that I'm getting into here in my own backyard. My kick this season has been on homestead as a priority. Let's talk about some of the priorities that I talk about in my content, but I think it's a priority when you think about your homestead. One is security. Guys have asked me, what security system do you have? I have Vivint. I mean, it's a local company. It's also a national-based company that is very good at optimizing 360-degree technological security that has super cool features. I have infrared capability to identify. We call it trip identify in military talk, but identify movement and motion all over my house and all over my yard. That also sends an SMS or text message to my phone. I could monitor all the cameras on my property in real time. I could communicate through those cameras. I could listen to audio through those cameras, and it's monitoring 360 degrees, 24 hours a day. And I love that. I could remote lock. I'm not paid by Vivint, by the way. I looked and did all the research on the best security systems in the U.S. and Vivint, especially in my area. In fact, one of the partners that we work with, their business partner was an investor in Vivint, and so that's even better because I know the inner workings of the company and how well of a company they are. But I have full confidence in the abilities of that security system identifying fire, identifying potential break-ins and security measures, and it's the way to go. I have a ring set up on one of my doors that also allows me as a contingency to navigate another security option that's technology. One of the questions would be, Mike, what about security when the electricity goes out? And that's a good question. What about if you lose the internet? I use satellite internet on top of normal internet. I have a Starlink. Elon Musk made Starlink. I love Starlink because it works in my area, and it's also satellite based. I could even run a generator that backs up the power to run that internet full time. So I have no problems with allowing in my setup technological security being the primary and alternate means of securing my home. Now, I do have home defense systems. I just did a video on a biometric digital punch code system that allows me to keep loaded firearms readily accessible in my home. I'm doing that as well because I have my own security plan where I have guns strategically located in the house to allow me to access those readily accessible firearms, knowing that I have some bit of time because I have barriers of technology, physical locking mechanisms in my doors, in my storm doors, that give me an extra layer of security. All these things are super important in laying out the security plan. I won't go into too much detail because that's a podcast in itself, but I want to give you always my priority, which is security in homestead, no matter what. Now, one of the things that I have rolling out for you guys for all of my content on mike.a.glover, on Mike Glover Actual, both on Instagram and my YouTube channel, Mike Glover Actual, as well as my company's Instagram and YouTube, the Fieldcraft Survival channel, is my journey in this homestead. I'm building out my own homestead. It takes time. It takes investment. It takes resources. The first step for me is what I already have, which is goats, chickens, ducks, and that is for me to sustain my family, which is right now just me and my children until I decide to live with a girlfriend, that I have the ability to feed my family without the dependence on Walmart, on factory farming, because I don't want to do that. So my eggs last week were able to sustain me. My chickens last week were able to sustain me with 32 eggs in 1 week. That's great because my kids crush 3 to 6 eggs a day, and I need that kind of support. Also, if that goes away, the Walmart that's 5 minutes down the road goes away, I still have the ability to sustain on my property my children's nutrition and sustenance. That's important for me. I don't like factory farming. And so part of this is I want to sustain myself away from factory farming or food in the grocery stores that I don't know where it came from, and instead outsource it with places like Ballerina Farms, where I know where the food comes from. I get my ground beef from there. And other means of sustaining that myself. Now I have 2 goats, Frank and Boss, named after the Shackleton expedition, by the way, that are going to be used for hunting and packing out deer and elk. That's their intended purpose. Anne, who is my female goat, who's also an alpine, she is pregnant right now, and she's going to be used for milking. I have 2 little goats that are just little goats. They won't be used for anything. They're my children's pets because my children use them to learn about taking care of them and feeding them and doing all the stuff they need. And they're not a threat to my children because they're miniatures. I have right now 3 grown chickens who provide around 30 eggs a week. And then I have 6 new baby hens. I think 1 may be a rooster, and 2 ducks. I want the ducks for helping with the ecology or the ecosystem of pooping and providing fuel and energy to the gardens that I'm providing, to grow and help with my bees. But I also want to have more chickens available for more eggs because I want to get more savvy at taking that food and then saving that food and stockpiling what I have. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing the greenhouse, because I want to grow things that allow me to grow and preserve them in canning and jarring for the long haul, right? I want to get ahead of the game. So the ducks are used for fertilizer. The chickens are used for eggs. I don't have any meat chickens or duck meat. I don't like that. I want to hunt my bird or my game. And then I have the next evolution of this, which is beekeeping. So Kalapuya honey, that's Kalapuya or Puya. Kalapuya honey is coming here next weekend, or next week, but this weekend, to provide me with my own beehives to grow my own honey on site. So I'll be beekeeping, and I'm going to show you that journey, and it's going to be epic. Well, why? Because not only is honey great nutritionally, it preserves really well. It's very medicinal, and the idea of maintaining that high caloric content on site to be able to can or be able to jar and sustain my family for a long period of time is very alluring to me. I also want to have the capability on site. Also, they pollinate flowers, so I'll have wildflowers as well. Something else I've lined out right after this, next month, in fact, is I talked to a guy named Brandon from farmsteadmeatsmith.com. farmsteadmeatsmith.com. So I'm going to be getting pigs for slaughtering and butchering for this summer and this winter to sustain my family with pork and fat and lard. Why? Because my kids routinely eat pork. I like the fact that it's dense in fat, it's dense in nutrition, but I also like the fact that I can get it readily available in my own backyard. Now, I also want to get you guys selfishly past this point where you are identifying your food in packages from Walmart as being what food is. It's not. That food that you eat, very seriously, was a life. But we become so disconnected from that, we need to get reconnected. So I want to tell the story. I want you guys to be more involved. And I want you guys to see that you could do this in your own backyard. So does it suck to raise an animal and kill that animal? Yes. But the alternative here is you're just disconnected and buying stuff from Walmart thinking that's not a life. That life, in fact, never free grazed. That life, in fact, was shoved in a hole and potentially abused, potentially neglected. My pigs will have an amazing life. And when I end their life, it will be ethical, it will be part of their journey, and they'll be part of the nutrition and connection that we've lost that we need to find in our food, right? That process my kids will be involved in. The ones that I love will be involved in. Why? It's so significant for us to get more involved in the realities of our lives. This disconnection on social media, this disconnection from what we're putting on our tables and putting into our bodies is not acceptable to me, and I want to get back to that. So that's what we'll be doing. Also, we got an amazing setup right now. Have my personal assistant and her amazing husband helping me set up a greenhouse in the backyard, a 20 foot by 10 foot, to be able to grow my own foods on site. And selfishly, I'm going to do kimchi because I'm a big fan of kimchi, which is fermented cabbage, radish, cucumber, and then preserve that and show you that process. I am new to greenhouses, but I want to learn. My COO, my Chief Operations Officer, who is also a big family garden person, is the expert. She's going to be doing content with me with a greenhouse, and we're going to do this together. I also have planned hunts and fishing journeys that are going to be epic. I plan to go to Alaska in September, October timeframe to do a halibut and wild salmon, or king salmon in particular, because I want to get that food. It's about 100 pounds of meat that I can get to sustain my family all the way into summer for the next year. And also, I already have tags given to me by Black Rifle Coffee and a couple significant outfitters. Eastman's Elevated, one of my favorite podcasts on hunting. Eastman's Hunting Journal, good friends at Vertex and Eberlstock, Kafaru, all big fans of all these companies that are helping me in my hunting journey. I'm excited to go on these hunts and then show you that journey and fill my freezer. Because again, I'm not depending on the Walmart to provide that for me. Also, I'm going to be doing a lot of content into the winter about curing these meats and making cheese, because I geek out over the fermentation process of cheese and kimchi and all this stuff. That's good for your bio. It's good for your what's the terminology? It's God, what is the word? Bio. It's not biomatter. Hold on. It's right there. It's so close. Anyways, your gut bacteria, your bactrim. That's the word. Bactrim. It's good for your bactrim, right? And it's good for your guts. And that journey for me is going to be around the time that Anne gives birth, and I'll be milking her daily because goat milk is like a superfood. I'm interested to tell you about this stuff and grow my own homestead, my own local homestead, so you can see the journey together. And I want to share in that journey with you all. So hope you're pumped about that. Guys, let's talk about a couple things cleaning up this podcast. I like to keep these under an hour. But SIG Freedom Days is this weekend. I'll be at SIG Freedom Days doing free blocks of instruction with myself and my company. You can go to fieldcraftsurvival.com and sign up for those, but you have to get the tickets to SIG Freedom Days. I'll be floating around the entire place the entire time doing content and hanging out. And Jack Carr will be there. I'm super excited about that. But love to see your face there at SIG Freedom Days at Ben Avery Shooting Range in Arizona. Please come out and see us. Also, I want to turn you on to Overland Expo, which is going down 20th through 22nd. Overland Expo is an overland show, think trade show. We will have a booth. We'll be teaching out of our booth and offering swag and equipment in our booth. please come and visit us. It's a good time. It's a cool thing to see, like, hey, how do these builds work out? Mike Hernandez, Ricky, my whole team will be there. Please come out and see us at Overland Expo in Prescott, Arizona, May 20th through the 22nd. Also, I want to point you in the right direction for Kevin Owens' YouTube channel. Kevin Owens launched the YouTube channel. He was one of my mentors in special operations, but also a man full of knowledge. He's also setting up the breakout class for September. If you don't know what breakout is, go on Fieldcraft Survival Training or Fieldcraft Survival Training on Instagram and check out this amazing journey that's called Breakout. You guys are going to enjoy it. It's an amazing time. I can't say a lot about it because a lot of it's classified, but essentially it's us running you through a real world scenario of bugging out, evading, and the closest thing that you can get to a SEER experience, a survival, escape, resist, and evade experience for civilians. Super excited about that. That's taking place in September. Slots are super limited. We only run one a year now. And if you want to sign up, pay attention to fieldcraftsurvival.com. Also, we are doing Responsible Citizen every Wednesday in Heber City. We will be doing this every Wednesday at Fieldcraft HQ in North Carolina, near Southern Pines as well. The next ones are 11 and 18 May, doing survival and self-defense, completely free. You show up, you get taught for an hour or two from an expert, completely free in your own backyard. The program, Responsible Citizen, is our way of giving back to you and teaching you guys to be more resilient as civilians and be more responsible for your community. Look, if you learn a skill set like stop the bleed, you need to teach your family. But you also need to be responsible as a citizen to help those in need that you might come across. Check that out. You can sign up for it for free on fieldcraftsurvival.com. Lastly, I want to say thank you to all of our sponsors, especially the ones that have helped me through all this rally experience. I'm getting prepped and primed, rally ready. Texas Dave, JT, and all the guys are getting me prime for Ohio, where I'll be unrestricted in a rally spec engine, sequential driven rally car. Dude, that's like next level. What I need is driver's training. I need more experience, and I'm willing to do that. What I'm asking is if you know anybody who is a sim racer or has sim sponsorship or own a company or affiliated with a company that does sim racing, please have them reach out to me at my email at mike.fieldcraftsurvival at gmail.com. mike.fieldcraftsurvival at gmail.com, because I'm super interested in getting sponsored by a sim racing company because I want to become better at driving, but I want to get the seat time. But I also want to do sim racing as well as real racing and rally. Guys, it's been an hour. It's been my pleasure. I appreciate you guys tuning in this podcast. Go to fieldcraftsurvival.com for training and equipment and all the things that we drop. I appreciate you. Until next time, stay alert. Stay alive, guys. Peace out.